Phil Lindeman, Crystal Media News Director, in the studio for more on our series, The Humans of Summit Search and Rescue. Summit County Rescue Group. I'll get in trouble if I call it Summit Search and Rescue. And today I got Kyle Griffin with me. Kyle, thanks for being in here, man.
Yeah, thank you very much, Phil. It's a pleasure to sit down with you and chat. Thanks for inviting me in the studio.
Of course. I've been having a lot of fun hearing everybody's stories about, where they come from, why they do what they do, how they got involved in search and rescue. And we'll start right there with you. So tell me a little bit about, your road to becoming a rescue team member.
Yeah, sure. Everyone's story is just a little bit different. In particular, my story kind of starts from a younger age. Not going to get too Freudian and go down that rabbit hole, but I was really involved with the Scouts when I was younger. And that program kind of has two prongs. So there's teaching kids, morality, or you might say virtues or values. And that's the goal, but the method of doing that is to take them out into the woods, teach them about camping, teach them about fishing, hiking, orienteering. And so I got very involved with that when I was about 10 years old. And through that program, developed a lot of outdoor skills that launched me to come out here. When I finally arrived here in 2017, I thought, oh my gosh, look at this playground around me. Like, all of these things that I learned as a kid, I can actually finally use instead of being in the flatlands of Michigan. So discovering the rescue group was great for me because it allowed me to find a way to serve the community around me, which was a big emphasis in the scouting program. And of course, use the same skills that I learned in that program here every day that we go out on a mission.
I got to ask you, an Eagle Scout?
I am an Eagle Scout, yes.
Great to meet another Eagle Scout. I also am an Eagle Scout.
Oh, really?
Yeah, man. And, I always like talking to people about scouting and what they got out of it because, when I was a kid, I think I hit that 16-year-old age when I was like, ugh, I'm over it. I don't want to finish.
You got your license
anymore.
and you're like, I'm out of here.
Mm-hmm. The way that my buddy's dad always put it was the two fumes get in the way. Car fumes and perfumes, right? And
that's the truth.
The quickest way to make sure somebody doesn't become an Eagle Scout.
Yeah,
the perpetual lifer, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so Scouts in Michigan, like you said, tell me a little bit what it's like to be a Scout in Michigan.
So the nice thing about being a Scout in Michigan, it's an opportunity you don't really get as much here, is the beauty of the lakes. So Michigan is surrounded by some massive freshwater Great Lakes, but also on the interior of the state, it's kind of like Minnesota in a way. There are thousands of little lakes as well. So you can get involved in canoe treks, swimming, you want to learn rowing or canoeing. It's all there for you in the summer. And it's very special to go out. Something that I deeply miss here in the fall, when you have a couple of colors here. You might have beautiful yellows in the aspens and some deep greens in the evergreens, but the technicolor fire that you get in the Midwest when you go out and you camp in the woods in the fall is just really special, especially when it contrasts with those deep blue freshwater lakes. So
I'll bet I need to make a trip out there sometime during the fall because, growing up scouting here in Colorado, because I'm from Denver originally.
Oh, okay.
And so most of our scouting was definitely the sorts of things that I think you're enjoying these days. Lots of camping trips, lots of 14er trips, lots of rock climbing and, like high alpine mountain sort of stuff. And so that was one thing that I didn't get much of, was not much water activity. Although I did do the mile swim a bunch because I grew up as a swimmer.
Oh, yeah.
And so the mile swim was always fun because, it gave me a chance to actually go out and swim on a lake instead of swimming laps in a pool for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Which I would prefer any day. I love open water swimming.
Wherever you are in scouting, it's a special experience given your surroundings, especially here. I mean, how many scouts get to go above tree line and do the camping and the 14ers that you get around here? So
I'd say that was probably the thing that kept me in scouting the most, was the fact that I loved being outside. I really did. Yeah. I loved being outside, and I love learning, like you said, the skills that you can use to help yourself get deeper into the outdoors. Because there was lots of folks I remember back when I was in high school. People love to just go car camp. I still like car camping, but that was literally as far as they wanted to go. Yeah. They wanted to be within easy, distance of the trunk of their car.
Yeah.
And because of scouting, I was like, nah, let's go let's go wander. Let's go disappear for a couple days.
Yeah.
And people were not into that.
You wanted to connect with the ground and have the tents around you. And,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wanted to sleep uncomfortably. Yeah, well, that's cool. You know, you were able to transfer, you know, the things that you learned in scouting to search and rescue. I guess if you could think, like, what are some very, you know, what are the skills that pop to mind immediately from scouting that you've transferred to while your work now a year with search and rescue?
Yeah. You know, I think the biggest thing is just being comfortable being uncomfortable. There's a quote that I like from an old mountaineer that is, he was asked once about what's it like to go camping in the or what's it like to, you know, climb K2 and climb Everest. He goes, it's just camping. And it's just about being comfortable, being uncomfortable. So, you know, in scouting, you learn how to prepare for a trip, stay warm, pack your bag right, get to your campsite, prepare it correctly, set up your tent, and you might be able to be really comfortable in a 0-degree winter storm and get out of your tent the next morning and go on about your day. And that sort of perspective that hey, I know that this is I know that my hands are cold, I know that my feet are cold, but I also know that I can prevent them from getting any colder, and it's not going to last forever, and there is a task that we need to carry out here, a goal that needs to be completed. My comfort comes secondary to that goal.
Right. And I think I learned similar things too. We used to do, again, growing up in Colorado, we'd go to Fraser.
Sure.
Every February, and we'd dig quinzies.
Yeah.
We dig quinzies, which are basically, you know, it's not exactly a snow hut or a snow cave or an igloo or anything like that, but it's just, mounded up snow that you let settle, and then you dig it out and you sleep the night in it.
Yeah.
And getting the polar bear badge was something I loved doing every single year. As long as it got below zero that night, you got the polar bear badge. And It always felt like a waste if it didn't get below zero.
Like you put all this work into the quinzee and you didn't end up getting that recognition.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And it only got to 20 last night. Can we stay one more night? Yeah. And so it was, you know, again, one of those things where other friends that weren't involved with scouting would look at me like, you're going to sleep in the snow on purpose. Yeah. And? Yeah. You want to come with?
Yeah.
No, not at all. And I was like, all right, great. I guess we have fire. Wait, there's a fire there?
Yeah.
But yeah. And so, like, with search and rescue, how are you able to, you know, help transfer? Because I'm sure that you run into lots of folks like my friends who they like, you know, like, they kind of like taste testing the outdoors, but they don't like really being deep there. You get hurt. Suddenly you find yourself deep in the woods in a place you don't want to be that you can't get out of. How do you help them, you know, like you said, helping them be comfortable being uncomfortable?
Yeah, you know, so example being someone gets lost that may not be totally prepared for that. Night is falling, they're cold, they don't have the layers that they would need to stay out there overnight. And here we are, we arrived shortly after sunset, and now we have to, you know, comfort is physical. It's also psychological. So I'm going to bring in extra socks, extra gloves, extra layers in my bag, and provide those things to whoever needs that assistance. But I'm also going to be there with, you know, a calm demeanor and a calm voice, and maybe a hot drink, to reset their, you know, psychological perspective and say, okay, you're safe now. We're going to get you out of here. We're going to help make you comfortable. Let's get your wet socks off, your wet gloves off, get a jacket on you, and help get you out of here. And so that's caring for both the physical and the psychological aspects that someone's going to be experiencing out there when the sun sets and they don't know if they're going to last through the night.
So think back on any missions that you've had. Like, you know, does any moments come to mind about somebody's reaction to that? Did it work? Did it help?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that if you asked any other rescue group member that has had a similar situation, they would say the same. One event in particular sticks out to me. We had an individual who was lost in the woods in April. So she had lost a snowshoe, and we came upon her just a little bit before sunset, but she had already been out there for probably, I believe, 9-10 hours. She was quite well prepared, though perhaps not very prepared to spend the night out there. The temperature ended up dropping to, I think it was like -5 overnight from a high of somewhere in the 40s during the day. So a drastic temperature swing. We were able to make it there, and I ended up being the first one to get to her, which is always a thrill. And change her socks out, change her gloves out, gave her an extra layer, and got her out of there. She was incredibly grateful. But what stuck out to me about that mission was, she came out, and we got out shortly after sunset, and her husband was actually at the trailhead, and there were maybe 10 or 11 of us on this rescue, and he was so incredibly appreciative that he came around and shook every one of our hands, and I'll never forget that. The sort of emotional relief that people experience, whether they're being rescued or the family members of those being rescued, is one of the more powerful things I've experienced in this year.
Very cool. Well, and I remember I was talking to, one of your mission coordinators that's been around a very long time, and he said, victims usually fall into two camps. People that are incredibly grateful, the ones that are shaking everybody's hands, and the others that are embarrassed that they were there, and that and they might feel a little more comfortable as soon as they get out saying, all right, thanks guys, bye, and leave. Yeah. Which, as a rescuer, you can't really take personally, can you?
No, you can't take that personally. You never really know how someone is going to react to being rescued. And, maybe they are embarrassed because they feel like they had the skills, and they ended up calling for a rescue anyway. And if that's the case, I think there's a bit of a myth out there that the people that get rescued are only the ones that are not very prepared. We have that, certainly. People that don't have proper navigation or proper footwear or sun protection, whatever it is, and need to rescue. We also have people who are very well prepared, and hey, you still end up breaking a leg, and you really can't move once that happens. So no matter the skill level, we're always there for you, and it's skill and education are not a guarantee that you won't be rescued. You might have a lower probability there, but there are no guarantees when you decide to go past the trailhead there.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I was listening to a podcast, Bombhole Podcast is a great podcast from pro snowboarders. Yeah. Uh-huh. And I think it was Seth Hewitt talking about a backcountry trip that he took with a bunch of other pros. Things went sideways fast. Mm-hmm. Somebody got caught in a slide. Wasn't a full burial, but was enough of a slide that, they had to get to them. They were nervous about other conditions. And so that ended up turning into a very long night. Somebody had broken their leg, some other bones, things like that. And same thing, a group of professional snowboarders ended up having to call search and rescue because there was literally, they were so deep in the woods, there was no way that they were safely going to get that person out there. People were getting exhausted. People were kind of losing their cool. Again, I would think that a professional snowboarder might also feel that embarrassment that, oh my God, I got caught in the backcountry and broke some bones. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like you said, it happens to everybody.
Yeah. That's a wonderful example, and it goes to prove that point that nobody is truly safe from being caught in an avalanche. Nobody is truly safe from losing their way and being benighted on a peak.
Now that you've had a full year under your belt, what do you feel you're more drawn to? Summer rescues, winter rescues? Do you got a season that you prefer?
I would say that I started out by preferring winter rescues, and I think a lot of that was just dictated by my experiences. I'm a lifelong skier, and ski touring was really natural to me when I joined the team, though I'm trying to get more comfortable in all seasons. A year's not all that long compared to the other folks that you've had in the studio here, and those that have a whole lot more skill. And it's pretty inspirational, honestly, to be a part of a group that has so many skills, and they're so diversified in their skills. So I'm trying to get better in that, in all directions, really. And that is helping me be more comfortable in summer-oriented rescues, whether that's technical or it's a long carry out with a litter, or shoulder season rescues where, maybe I should have my summer mountain boots and my skis in my car. I don't really know what I'm going to see. So being ready for the unforeseeable, in a sense.
Yeah, most definitely. Good Boy Scout, being prepared, right?
Yeah, right. That's the motto.
So tell me about winter rescues then. What are some of the biggest difficulties that come with a winter rescue from the rescuer side of things?
Sure. Some of them are obvious. The first one is obviously cold. So we're dealing with the same cold that our patient might be dealing with out in the woods, and we have to be prepared for it when we get to the trailhead. So that generally means having quite an arsenal in your car and a lot of bags. Do I need to have 3 layers on today or 2 layers on today? Do I need an over mitt over my gloves because it's that cold? What's the wind look like? What's the temperature look like? Another aspect of winter is that it just takes a long time to travel. So traveling in winter, let's take getting up to the top of Buffalo Mountain in summer. That is not too bad for most people. They can usually do it in, somewhere between 2 to 4 hours, get to the top and come back down before 6 hours elapses. You try to do that in the snow, and you're trudging through deep snow, or you're trying to stay on top of a packed trail. You're now post-holing through that big scree field or talus field, goes steeply up to the summit, and you're just adding a lot of time in. So if there is a rescue that ends up being quite deep in the backcountry in the winter, that's going to be a long day, even if it isn't too far as miles go, and would be done pretty efficiently in the summertime.
Now, summer, flip side, what are some of the things that you've noticed are the biggest difficulties about those summer rescues? Weather is a primary factor almost every day in the summer. We start getting afternoon thunderstorms, which are pretty typical for our region, and those certainly can impact our ability to rescue. I recall, I would say, a lucky near miss for everybody involved recently this summer. We had a call out for some individuals who decided to climb up Fletcher Mountain and were experiencing altitude sickness, having a hard time getting back. They ended up being out for, I think, over 8, maybe 10 hours. And we had just arrived on scene. We were actually training. We had a team training based in 10 Mile Canyon, and many of us drove south to the Blue Lakes area. And the time we arrived is about the time that every one of them got out of the field, and we met in the parking lot. No more than 10 minutes later, we were engulfed by a dark cloud that started spitting hail and rain on us, and shooting down bolts that were certainly within a mile of us. So for both the parties involved that were lost and the rescuers, I think we all got lucky. That's a good example of weather turning south in a hurry. It can happen so fast here. It took no more than 10 minutes or 15 minutes from the time that we saw the dark clouds on the horizon of the ridgeline, and it was on top of us. Yeah, it's almost like we were talking about, anybody can end up being rescued. Anybody can get caught in those nasty conditions, especially rescuers. Like you said, when you think to yourself that typical rescue is going to take twice as long as it would take to just do that trip anyway. Is that safe to say? Like say you got to get somebody on Fletcher. That's a relatively long haul. Because that ridge line it's deceptively long.
Absolutely.
It gets you up there.
It maybe in a good scenario it'll take twice as long as it would for them to just come out. Once we get there, if they're mobile and they're feeling good and we're able to move, then that's wonderful. It's not always the case. Maybe we have to stabilize a broken wrist or get them back from pretty severe dehydration that they've experienced, or maybe in the winter we come upon sun blindness or snow blindness. So those are factors that are going to either require us to treat prior to movement and stabilize, or just going to necessitate a very long and difficult travel out from wherever they are.
And I remember I asked your wife this exact same question, so I figured I'd have to ask you then too. Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you got to keep it in the family. What was you think your biggest misconception about search and rescue that was quickly debunked for you?
Biggest misconception. I really thought joining the team, or at least I expected that I'd meet people who had a lot of skills, but also were proud of those skills. I think one of the things for me that I've been constantly amazed by in my fellow teammates is how humble they are about the deep skill sets that they have. Most of the time, I'll get to know someone better through another person on the team, because no one's going to, share with you the skill sets that they have. It might be considered boastful, but you talk with another team member and they say, "Do you know what they do?" "No, I don't." "Oh, well, let me tell you." So it's pretty eye-opening, and I appreciate that that kind of humble demeanor. I think it really does carry over into rescues as well. It helps the team perform better. No one feels like the hero or the expert. I think many of us would say that we can never be experts. We can only gain more experience.
And that's a thread that everybody I've talked to has come back to that same thing too. Is that there's no superheroes that would call themselves superheroes on that team, but you got a lot of superheroes. They're
a lot
rolling
of
around
highly
that.
skilled individuals.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think it was Dan was telling me, the value of some of the skill sets on that team are in the many thousands of dollars per hour. If you guys were getting paid per hour, many thousands of dollars per hour would be spent. What is the skill set that you want to improve the most? What do you think you want to work on?
Wow, there's just really a plethora to choose from. I think that's what's so exciting and what really draws me into the search and rescue world. I have certain avenues that I'm working on right now, but what I realize is that the avenues are really endless. And that's what keeps people on the team, like Dan for 40 years, or like Glenn for the last 22 years, is you continue to learn new skill sets. So you might become really proficient with technical rescue or roped rescue, that is, or you might become a very proficient searcher, where you get to the point where you can track people's footprints. You might become really good with dog handling or a really good avalanche technician, but there are still other avenues to explore. And, once you've mastered maybe the technical skill sets, well, why don't you try teaching other people those skill sets or leading groups of people into the field that are utilizing those skill sets? That becomes exponentially more difficult. So all along the spectrum, no matter how much experience you have, there's more to learn. Dan actually brought something up when we were going through our new member training that I thought was really a great perspective. He said, "I have learned a lot, and a lot I have learned doesn't matter anymore."
That kind of is the truth. I mean, well, and like you said, there's I think it's that thirst for learning that's another common thread between everybody on the rescue group, is that people aren't happy just, I'm good at that, I don't need to get any more. Everybody wants to kind of keep on improving themselves so that they can better serve people that are in trouble.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
absolutely. You know, carrying that and extending that out to folks, just a tip for folks that are going out, that education is not a one and done. It has a very short shelf life. So, you know, if you've gone out with a guide and you've been taught how to climb, maybe go out with a different guide service, or maybe take another class in climbing. If you've taken your recreational avalanche awareness level 1 class and your rescue companion rescue class a couple of years ago, take it again this year, or maybe take the level 2 recreational avalanche awareness class. There's more to learn, and guarantee, even going back to the same class that you did before, you're gonna gain more than you did the first time around. You keep revisiting that information, and it becomes more and more ingrained into what you do when you go out.
Yeah, it makes me think back to, I went on a ski tour when I worked at the newspaper, so a couple of years ago at this point, with Teague Holmes and Fritz Sperry.
Yeah.
And you know, two big names in our local backcountry scene. They'd never been together. They had never gone on a tour together. And it was pretty fun to be a fly on the wall and listen to them share, you know, their little things that they've learned over time and the way they approach problems in mountains and what they see when they see it. And I think it was pretty cool that, you know, a lot of us, especially winter rec, you know, we get used to our crew that we go out with. And we go out with the same people, which is fun because we know we trust them. We know that they're reliable. We know that they've got a skill set that, you know, complements what we have. But I think sometimes it's nice to go out with folks that you're not familiar with because, you know, as long as you talk about it before you leave and are comfortable with everybody, you're probably going to learn something out in the field even that you might not even learn from, you know, your regular crew of people. Yeah. I think it's one of those things that's hard to do sometimes, but I've always found it rewarding when I go out on a tour with somebody I've you know, never been touring with before, because it's fun to pick their brains about what they're seeing and how they're seeing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you know, you go out with the friends that you know how you're going to interact, and you know you're going to have a lot of fun, and it's hard to want to develop a new partnership, but especially when you try to develop new partnerships with folks who come from different backgrounds than you do. You know, say that you're into split boarding and they're really into Nordic backcountry, and you go out together, you're going to learn different, you know, each of those individuals in their experience backgrounds is going to read terrain differently. They're going to look at mountains differently, and it can be helpful to kind of broaden that perspective for yourself. Yeah, totally agree.
And finally, Kyle, I forgot to ask you at the very, very beginning. Tell me, what's your day job? Because everybody's got a day job. Superheroes got to have a day job, right?
You know, it's funny when you spoke about getting paid, or the potential of these people being worth thousands of dollars an hour as rescuers, I was thinking, oh man, how would I do that? I'm a payroll accountant by trade, and I work for Arapahoe Basin Ski Area, which I've worked for most of the last 5 years that I've been an accountant. So there's another, I was listening to the episode with Dan talking about, you know, paid rescue versus unpaid rescue, and coming from the payroll accountant's perspective, how would I ever track those hours? Man, that would be such a challenge. You know, what are we going to use? Timesheets? You know, I can't even imagine it. So there's another added complexity to the potential for paid rescue. Go ask a payroll accountant how that's going to work.
Yeah, definitely. There you go, Dan. I think Dan nailed it on the head. He wouldn't do it because, partly because logistics and partly because, you know, the other, you know, philosophy that he has about not paying people. But yeah, they're at the Basin. Where can people find you at the Basin if you wanted to be found?
Give me a call on Channel 1. That is the best way to reach me. But my office is actually also on site. I'm located in the base area there, and got a view of the snow. I'm about 100 feet from the edge of the lift of Black Mountain Express chairlift line. So it's a great perspective. It's lovely to watch the base area come alive in the morning and see all these happy people, whether they're skinning up the hill or just getting to the ski area at 8:30 in the morning and excited to get on the lift line on a Saturday. And just watching people enjoy the outdoors. I've always loved that, and that's why I'm still involved in the ski industry. Actually, both my parents are as well, and that's kind of how I got into it. My mother is the president of a ski shop in the Metro Detroit area. My dad is involved in resort marketing for Boyne Resorts in Michigan. And they introduced me to skiing when I was about 2 years old. So I've always been around ski areas and really developed the love of sharing the experiences that I have garnered over my life with others, and sharing, the vehicle for those experiences, which is skiing. I've seen it be a great avenue for healthy lifestyle and wonderful experiences outside in the natural world, and something that can keep families together and friends together. So there's so much good that comes out of it, and I really enjoy supporting it.
Yeah. I think I'm right there with you, because I think back on like some of my favorite childhood memories. It's definitely ski trips with the parents, or ski trips with friends, or even to this day. I mean, yeah, I think it's the same thing. I love getting out with, love getting out with anybody on the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, there's something that beats a bar any day. Mm-hmm. Sure, we can go do it afterwards, but let's go do something useful first.
And meeting those new personalities on the chairlift that you never would have experienced elsewhere.
Absolutely. Like this morning, talking to people on the chairlifts for First Chair Friday. It's probably my favorite part of this gig on Fridays, is that I get to go out and talk to random people on a chairlift and see what they got to share with me. And today, we had a talkative group.
I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, definitely. It was fun out there. Well, Kyle, thanks again for making time to stop by here and, of course, share your experience with, with search and rescue so far, and hopefully a long career to go. I'm guessing that you don't have plans of leaving anytime soon.
I have no plans. This rescue group is one of the most enjoyable things that I do every week. I love going to our meetings every Wednesday, and I love continuing to learn more, and that's the path that I'm currently on. I got a long way to go. It's only been a year, so.
Yeah, dude, definitely. Well, we look forward to talking to you again in 10 years, 15 years, and see what other new stuff you're learning still.
Yeah, Phil, I'd really like that.
Yeah, most definitely. Talking to Kyle Griffin here on Humans of Search and Rescue.
Thanks, Phil.